Yeah, man. Iron Man and Fantastic Four. As I've been trying to talk about Reed Richards all night.
Where's the
Nobody gives a fuck about it.
Where's the video trading card?
I'm gonna go change it.
Where's the remote?
Well, we've never had credits on Scooby before. We always leave.
I've never met this botman either.
That is not the credits for the shit they show at the beginning now, is it?
This is half shit Scooby.
It said 1984 on it, man. It said 1984 on the copyright. That's 14 years, okay?
That'll make a difference.
Right.
Angle.
It says.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, everything's sitting on top of his mind, and yeah, it was out of the unmarked out of the other camera with the safety tab broken off. It doesn't make a difference. You know it's got to be my tape, right? Where else? Safety tabs, man. Fuck you up every
What are
time.
you doing there?
It's just getting interesting.
We're gonna watch Iron Man. I wanna watch Iron Man on this. Why do you have to
Wow,
watch
for the
yourself
train.
on there? When you can see it up there.
Well, you're supposed to start on this.
On that?
Yeah.
We can't
Go
watch
all the way
Iron
up there.
Man.
Come out of that thing. Can you go all the way up? That's it, huh? That's better.
For the year.
Yeah, that's better.
It's breaking. We are running over.
That would be fucking
But we never asked for it.
Star.
You got your money, don't you? See, you don't trust me with the money, man.
I trust you with it.
You're right back there, bus and everything, man. It's the 12, man. You coming to get special delivery or something?
Yeah, it's really late. Show.
Keep forgetting I'm here with you, Shane.
They were blocking the street.
He's trying to do his thing, and we're just in the way.
We're gonna get in trouble.
No, we're not.
I'm hungry.
As I came down to the show tonight, there was a woman that was nailed to a telephone pole. I couldn't help but think about that guy that was on a routine training flight
Suntrans.
over in North
The
Korea
bus came and told us.
and just
Where?
kind of accidentally flew into North Korea
Can we get a sandwich?
and then
Take
got
a walk
shot
towards
down
the
by the North Koreans. And they said he was spying. He said he wasn't.
How far is it?
He just came back and he read
Half-hour
something
walk.
to us over the
Bus to
media.
I can get you a cheeseburger or something. Find something.
I ate a sandwich.
And I got to thinking why you couldn't order a pizza in an alley in the United States of America,
He never came down.
even if you had the money
Man, I can see us stealing.
and you had a phone number.
But I'm hungry.
He would have taken all your money and he would have taken all the pizza.
So that's the premise of the show tonight.
I've been up
Give us a
since
call at
8:30.
791-0055. Ask for Becky.
Well, answer.
Breakout. Even the title makes sense, man.
I'd like to introduce the guest tonight. If you can pull the camera around, extremely tight shots so that we can only see parts of their body and you won't be able to tell
Oh, you can
who they
hear us.
actually are,
We're
because
verbally-
as you know,
We did our stint.
the
for
CIA watches this show.
They love us. Didn't that guy step down?
And I hear we're big in Norway.
Kids love this shit.
Kids love this shit.
Big in Norway.
Five.
So if you can show a body part of my first guest, who I will just be
You got
known by his name, his,
cigarettes.
this is not his real name, we'll just call him Jack. That's a picture of Jack.
I don't smoke them.
You were told.
If
Yeah,
you
I
can
had
guess
'em, but
what
left me
part
nothing.
of Jack's body
we should discuss
you're looking
this
at now, call us at 791-0055. Oh, too much.
There they are.
Extremely close.
Hey, let's
Okay. Now, if I could get kind of a on the
Okay,
hip,
Simon. I'm
kind of a
idiot.
groin area shot of my next guest.
You don't have guests.
Extremely tight close up.
We're not guests.
Your guest, you're always a guest when you're on the really late show. Shane Eden, brought to you by Grapevine,
So damn late. I almost wish that I was
the
laying
Grapevine
back
magazine.
and relaxing.
If we can get a shot of the back of this, I'll hold this like that. Help the homeless for the holidays by the Grapevine. Now this magazine, Help the Homeless for the Holidays by the Grapevine. Let me show you what the Grapevine looks like. Doesn't that look nice? Happy holidays, it's a Grapevine. And
I get bits and pieces like
the beautiful part about this magazine is that when you purchase it, all the money that you pay for the magazine, by the way, it's I can't tell you how much it costs
I
to
can't.
buy the magazine on public access. But I can tell you here in Tucson that if you will write me a letter and send it to me, chances are I probably won't get a chance to look at it. You might as well forget that. Just suffice to say that it doesn't, it costs a mere pittance.
What's that?
But the most important thing is that all the money that goes to the person that sells the paper, so there's no in between. As of, they started out last year in Phoenix, they've been selling out 35,000 copies every 2 days. They've put over $253,000 into the pockets of the homeless in Phoenix, and now in Tucson, since the Grapevine has been in Tucson now for about 6 weeks. You see people out on the street corner with this magazine right here. It comes out weekly. It's full of really good news, and it does just what it says: help the homeless for the holidays by the Grapevine. So when you see this, remember that little known fact that Nostradamus, even though he was a great psychic and a great seer and prognosticator, he used to pick his nose a lot. He had a bad habit of picking his nose, and people were reviled by this, but what could they do? He was Nostradamus, and you know, there wasn't much to do back then anyway. And if you got a guy that would come around that would pick his nose, well, it might be, you could look at it as entertainment. Especially, you know, if a guy hasn't blown his nose for a long time, maybe has been sick
Probably
for a
a
while,
great discovery.
has a lot of mucus has gathered in his nostrils and is allowed to stay there for a long period of time, maybe 2 or 3 weeks, harden to a crust.
And you got to admit, back then architecture tended to have like these cold, damp places where you ended up working.
That's right. That's right, there was no electricity. If you lived in a castle that was made out of stone, which a lot of them were, and you had to go up like a hallway to get to your room, you know, they all had to have fireplaces. That's why this fire here is so important on this eve before the day before New Year's Eve.
We worked that one.
And which reminds me of something. So what do you guys think about that?
I think it should happen every year. I'm ready for the start of a new year. Hopefully people's conscious realization of what's going on will change. You know, they won't be brainwashed and in a rut, hypnotized.
Well, the
by
cat's out of the
technology.
bag. The cat's out of the bag. On Phil
Time for a
Donahue-
change.
On Phil Donahue's show last Monday, he had the Montana militia. They call themselves the militia of Montana, MOM, M-O-M. They're out of Noxon, N-O-X-O-N, spell it backwards and forwards, it's the same, Montana.
And they're ready to protect the soils of the United
And
States.
they say they're part of a sovereign movement that is right now 10 million militias strong.
Yay.
And they seemed very intelligent. They seemed very knowledgeable. And they challenged the American public to examine what's in front of their face and make a decision. Because as the one guy put it, if I'm wrong, then I need to know. And if you're wrong, you need to know. And it's very important. And 1995, no matter what anybody does, push is going to come to shove. Because we're right there. And that's a good thing. And if we just look at it and deal with it
Honestly.
in a responsible, honest fashion, then we got it knocked, you know?
I have to agree. There is hope.
But the middle of America is supposed to be split in half. We're going to lose California.
Earth changes.
And,
Mother Nature speaks.
Gordon Michael Scallion and everybody else since Casey and beyond has been talking about the earth changes, and that's another thing that it doesn't do you any good to worry about them, because if they're slated to happen, they're slated to happen. And what you need to do is to inform yourself so that if you know, for example, that if the earthquake in New York hits, then you should get out of California. Because Edgar Casey said that the earthquake would hit in New York, cause a lot of damage, and that's when to get out of California. So, if you don't believe in this stuff, then you need to just believe in what you believe in. That's the secret. But the deal is, you have to actually believe in it. You can't like fake believe in it or just take it for granted, because if you don't know what's going on, how can you have a belief about it?
Don't have enough information.
And it's coming down, so we don't have long to wait, huh? I'm still trying to figure out what happened to the crash in Sedona about 4 months ago now, I think. Where Dole and everybody was
It's
supposed to
playing
go
on-
up there, and the Russian guys.
Yes, it's an interview's playing now on UFOA Z94 with Claudia Sanderson that lives in Cottonwood area,
Coming
UFO
up.
researcher, and she talks about it.
Oh, cool. You remember what she says?
I don't. You'll have to tune in to UFOA Z94.
Okay, that's, but it'll be in 95.
Well, it's done in 94, so dating in. Yeah, as soon as we get a new lecture, we'll change it to 95. We got a lot of 94 to show you.
No, we've covered a lot of territory.
Yeah, we just come back from Mesquite. That'll be playing next.
I think
A
it's
lot of
really-
weird stuff going on everywhere.
Everybody's talked about the crash in Sedona. I imagine that a good portion of what they found there has been hushed up so thoroughly and so well that it's going to be a long time before we can figure out where they've hidden it.
Right.
Well, I don't know how they could hush up a whole city, you know, if they can hush
Maybe,
up a whole
you know,
city.
Well, they'll
You know,
say it was
maybe
an
they are
experimental
powerful.
aircraft.
Look at that.
Top security.
They got a great big board burning fire. These guys are crazy over here on this really late show. What the hell you doing?
We try.
I'm packing up my equipment.
He's packing up
Okay.
the equipment.
Sorry.
Do we have any equipment packers? Here comes your cab.
Put that box down.
Your cab's here.
I wish it was.
We did a psychic phone call for
Andy
you.
and Zog did come back.
That would be cool.
I think the other thing that intrigues me is
It's gotta be.
Keeps you
I think
out.
they got all of the equipment out of there very quickly.
No. It's just your hearing. It's the distance between us. The show happens.
It's something worth looking into. You're correct, Shane.
We gotta get out of here. We're interfering with Breakout.
Really late
And
show.
the really late show. Ah,
It's so cold, I don't know where to go.
It's the donut truck.
Not anybody I know. So they're not gonna give me a ride, so. Where'd you learn how to make fire, Kevin?
well, one of the other things
Fire Academy.
we were talking about earlier is we're going to be the last live show that goes out of Tucson Community Cable Corporation.
Correct. When they start up, they will be Access Tucson.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Starting at 95?
Yep.
Oh, yes. As of the first, but that doesn't really technically take effect until the 3rd. Or maybe the 2nd.
A lot of changes in 95.
You got all your shit, I got all my shit. Let's get out of their shit.
No shit.
No shit.
Like to stick around and shoot the shit, but we did that all.
Your shit is shot?
We're going to call Marty when he gets home. What's your number?
791-0055, bye, Hoyer.
Wherever he is.
So how are the homeless, are they benefiting pretty good from the grapevine yet here in Tucson? Feeding some of those?
Yeah, see, put that out so we can see it, I guess.
Oh, Doug Marty. Yeah,
Yeah, that's kind of cool.
grapevine. It's a good paper, you know. It's very
That's a very good paper. This particular latest issue that's out on the stand right starting January 2nd, or is it January 1st, has some very interesting articles in it.
It's right there.
Well, the last one I read had a really good book review in it.
Yeah,
I was very
there's a lot of
impressed.
different things. Also, they, since they come out weekly with a new paper every week, they're looking for copies. So people that would like to get something printed, can send it in. And
Get some.
not only, you know, not only homeless people, but anybody actually that kind of is looking for some, either some extra money or just needs it because you can't find a job. You don't have to be homeless. You can just, you know, a lot of people have homes, but they still just can't find a job and they're barely making it. You can sell this paper too, and
Reap the benefits.
you can make yourself between $30 to $50 a day selling this magazine. It's you don't need a license to sell it. It's a newspaper, so it's protected underneath the First Amendment, freedom of press. You can sell this newspaper anywhere that's public, and you can make some money selling this paper, and it's a good paper. And since they started printing this in Phoenix, which is where the paper comes from, they've put over $253,000 into the pockets of the homeless people that are selling this paper. Now, some of these people have been able, you know, some of these guys and gals in Phoenix are making $50 a day selling this thing on a regular basis. They put 35,000 copies out on the street each 2 days, and they're sold out. That's in Phoenix. It's just starting down here in Tucson. The people that do buy the paper tend to keep buying the paper because it's very inexpensive. The money goes to the person that they buy the paper from, so they know that, you know, the money's really going right to the people that are doing the work.
Right.
And everybody's happy when they're dealing with this thing, purchasing it and selling it, so it's a real good experience. And it's very good information. I mean, it's a terrific little paper. Like you said, it's got all sorts of stuff in it. And I think they're going to also start putting the listings of the Tucson, here in Tucson, they're going to put the Tucson Public Access, which is, I believe, going to be called, is it Access Tucson, or is that just the public access part of it?
That's everything that they're doing out of TCCC.
Oh, I believe that's Access Tucson. that's going to be listed in this newspaper. So that's a plus. It's like a television guide. So
Yeah.
I think this grapevine is a great thing.
Right on time.
It's right there. What a concept, you know. Help the homeless,
Absolutely.
you know. Don't have to go through government red tape. Nobody's forced. If you don't like these lazy bastards out on the street, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to buy the paper.
Right.
You know. So you're not taking no tax money here. And these people.
It's
And I'm
half
telling you,
lo-
I sell this newspaper from time to time myself out there.
It's half
And
a
I'm
lottery.
proud when I sell this paper because it's really got some good information.
Mhm.
So,
Oh, I like that.
happy holidays.
It's nights like this that you realize people shouldn't be homeless. We're lucky we have a fire.
Right. Help the homeless for the holidays by the grapevine. Now, this is not a commercial. This is just information for you out there that this holiday season really want to help the homeless. Help the homeless. We all ought to help the homeless. I've seen the homeless. I've had soup with them out there. I've slept with them out there. I've seen them. For the most part, they're very good people,
Very much so.
you know? They're
Well-
forced to live by their wits. In a society that thinks they're
Have a drink?
lazy or something. So, if a person's out there on the street selling a newspaper, how can he possibly be lazy? You know, so if you're interested in getting some new information, I commend this paper. This paper's got a very interesting article in there on George Bush. Those people out there that love George. Very interesting and very relevant information in this newspaper.
What is it? I haven't had a chance to read it. Or can we talk about that?
Yeah. Well, hell, I ought to read some of it.
Probably a good thing.
That would be a good change of pace. This is because everybody likes to be read to. You know, children like to be read to. And,
Absolutely.
I'm wearing my reading hat, as a matter of fact. So I'm going to turn to the center section of the grapevine. New Year's edition. That's right, the New Year's edition. So start the New Year's off. Somebody said start the New Year off with a new addiction.
That's right.
And
Maybe this is the right addiction.
think about this for a minute while I go get the other paper. We're going to offer this happy holiday. This will kind of be a neat kind of a thing. We're going to offer this happy holiday for the grapevine on the altar here.
Alright.
And we'll take a shot of that while we go.
You have another one?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. It was the new year, so I wore my New Year coat. See?
Good choice.
Can't see it, can you?
No, forget it.
Yeah, that's all right. All right. New Year's coming. This is in the grapevine.
Yeah.
For this is right out. This is new. Give the homeless a happy New Year. By the grapevine, January 2nd through the 8th. So this is a paper that's not even out yet.
Right.
This is the one that'll be out. This is called. What time is it? Oh, I gotta watch.
Good old Yeah,
Really?
finishing up.
Those who dismantled our Constitution. This is the article. And it's called, subtitled,
Oh, the two faces
where are
of
we?
George Bush. Oh,
oh, I can't see that.
there.
Where are
This
we?
way.
Oh, it's chroma keyed, that's why you can't read it.
And I'll go pull it towards you.
Oh, you need it closer?
Here it is.
The
The two faces of George Bush.
Very nice.
Two faces of George Bush. You can see there's George there with the American flag with this
Yes.
picture of his face on it torn in half.
The personality, George.
So, let's read a little bit from that as we go into the new year here in the United States of America.
With a K.
This is entitled Those Who Dismantled Our Constitution, and it's written by Brian Quigg. It is commonly assumed that there is no aristocracy, let alone a nobility, in America. Nothing could be farther from the truth. In his work Ancestors of American Presidents, Gary Boyd Roberts of the New England Historic Genealogical Society reveals 19 presidents descended from Edward III. John Galt, a pen name of a researcher fearing to be identified, in an unpublished manuscript now in the possession of the writer, the genealogy of the New World Order has traced the royal ancestry of George Bush, which traces from Charlemagne and Alfred the Great all the way down through George Bush's 32 presidential cousins. George Bush had 32 presidential cousins. Sadly, this manuscript may remain unpublished. Galt and I were scheduled to do a 2-hour radio interview on Tom Valentine's Radio Free America, a shortwave broadcast that reaches 250,000 listeners who are especially attuned to such topics. Just 2 days before the interview, a fire burned down the transmitting station. I remember reading about that, hearing about that. Unfortunately, this fire, which involved no foul play according to Valentine, frightened Galt, who now refuses to communicate with me or anyone else on these matters. This is Brian Quigg.
Quickly?
Brian Quigg. Nonetheless, I am convinced of the soundness of Galt's conclusions. I attended the Southwest Genealogical Society conference, which met last year at the Hyatt Regency, downtown Phoenix, during which Galt presented the most controversial aspects of his work to the top authorities there. Everyone acquiesced to the depth of his knowledge. Several of the attendees were close personal friends of Gary Boyd Roberts. Both George Bush and Barbara Pierce Bush of Merrill Lynch, Pierce, Fenner, and Smith are descended from the same Pierce family of England as President Franklin Pierce. Originally known as the enormously powerful Percy family of England, a name change to Pierce was required. Along with a quick immigration to America when their involvement in the failed gunpowder plot to blow up Parliament became known. One of the Percy castles where this plot was hatched was known as Sion House, or Sion House, S-I-O-N. Other notable Bush relatives include the Grosvenor families of England and America and the Taft family of Ohio. The Grosvenors of England are the Dukes of Westminster, who own the most substantial properties in the city of London, the banker's capital. Of over 100,000 acres of Grosvenor property, most is in the financial district of London. In America, the Grosvenors founded National Geographic. National Geographic is noted for swooping down on the archaeological treasures of the world, especially those of a religious significance, and spiriting them away to the Smithsonian Institute, controlled by their cousins, the Smithsons, also descended from the Percys. Imposing false interpretations on religious finds is very important to the House of Sion. As interesting as these family affiliations are, it is the Taft family which turns out to be the most politically interesting. Now, I remember reading about that a little while ago. Some town somewhere in the Mideast, I think, found some dinosaur remains. Remember, they found this big dinosaur there, and all of a sudden the government swooped down and took it out of there and took it to the Smithsonian, because they said that
They had all the...
it was a treasure that belonged to the government and didn't belong to the people of that state, which is a sovereignty problem.
It certainly is.
Although George Bush's official 1980 presidential candidate biography listed both his presidency of the Trilateral Commission and his membership in the Yale Secret Society Skull and Bones, no major news organization mentioned either of these telling affiliations. Now let's take a closer look at the Skull and Bones. Skull and Bones was first established by the graduating class of 1832 of Yale University by William Harrison Russell and Alphonso Taft, the father of President William Howard Taft. It is significant to note that Alphonso Taft was thereafter powerful enough to manipulate his son into both the presidency and the chief justiceship of the United States Supreme Court. Each year, the Skull and Bones graduating seniors would initiate only 15 new members, selected exclusively from the ranks of the offspring of the super wealthy. From the beginning, the Skull and Bones was a recruiting grounds for William Harrison Russell's Russell Trust Company, which managed the Skull and Bones treasury. Founded in 1823, the Russell Trust Company superseded the Perkins family to become the dominant opium trafficking syndicate in North America. The shipping manifests from those days have survived intact to make this claim solid. Russell's partners in this venture were those loyal to the Crown of England, and this allegiance persists to this day with their descendants, who comprise what is known today as the Eastern Liberal Establishment. Although there are more billionaires in America than in Great Britain, the largest billionaires of America still cannot hold a candle to the largest billionaires in England. The wealth of the royal family of Great Britain and this Tory group in America was all founded on the illegal opium trade from Turkey to China. Today, nothing has facilitated the illegal narcotics trade as much as the phony drug war of the Reagan-Bush era. A dozen books named Theodore Shackley, who served as the Central Intelligence Agency, or served as the number 2 man under Director George Bush in the Central Intelligence Agency, as the man who organized the opium trade in the Golden Triangle. Contra Cocaine, Mena, Arkansas. It all tempts one to speculate that maybe the Bush family never abandoned their interests in the most lucrative narcotics business. Among Russell's partners was Warren Delano Jr., chief of Russell Trust Operations in Canton, China. Delano was the grandfather of President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, another Bush cousin. Other Russell partners were John Cleve Green, whose opium fortunes financed Princeton University, Abriel Abbott Lowe, whose opium fortune financed the construction of Columbia University, Joseph Coolidge, whose son organized the United Fruit Company, and his grandson, Archibald Gary Coolidge, who was a founding executive officer of the Council on Foreign Relations. Are we starting to discern a pattern here? It is therefore little wonder that those 15 tapped yearly for the Skull and Bones have gone on to positions of enormous power. Take, for example, publishers Henry Luce, Skull and Bones 1920, and William F. Buckley, Skull and Bones 1950. New York Times General Manager Amory Howe Bradford, Skull and Bones 1934. CIA power players William P. Bundy, Skull and Bones 1939. McGeorge Bundy, Skull and Bones 1940. Richard Bissell, Skull and Bones 1932. Senator David Boren, Chairman of the Senate Intelligence Oversight Committee, Skull and Bones 1963, and anti-war activist Reverend William Sloane Coffin. Sloane.
Hey!
Skull and Bones 1949. Remember, this group intends to control both sides of every national debate. Are you starting to see a pattern? This just scratches the surface of Anthony Sutton's most scholarly work on the Yale Secret Society, The Order. Sutton's subsequent work, How the Order Creates War and Revolution, reveals that half of the board of directors of Brown Brothers Harriman and half of the board of directors of J.P. Morgan and Company were Skull and Bones graduates. The black flag with the white skull and crossbones emblem, which graced the corporate flag of all Russell Trust Company ships, which was adopted as the emblem of the Skull and Bones fraternity at Yale, acquired such a reputation back then that even to this day it symbolizes piracy. Is it not strange that the media spent so much time lint-picking the personalities of the candidates in the 1990 election and showed no interest in George Bush's membership in a secret society whose initiation rites involved carrying the new recruit naked in a coffin into a building the society calls the tomb? Let's see, they carry him when you become a Skull and Bones member. One of the things they do is they carry the new recruit naked in a coffin into a building the society calls the tomb. Eventually, Skull and Bones came to be dominated by Brown Brothers Harriman, the largest private investment bank in America. The CEO of this power group, Abriel Harriman, was the mentor of George Bush's father, Senator Prescott Bush. At one time, George Bush's grandfather, George Herbert Walker, served as president of Brown Brothers Harriman. The Bush family has spent 3 generations in service to the Harriman interest. That is why it is downright nefarious that the widow of Abriel Harriman, Pamela Harriman, was the principal backer of Bill Clinton for president. When Clinton lost the campaign for governor of Arkansas, it was Pamela who picked him up, dusted him off, and made him chairman of Pam PAC, the largest fundraising source for the Democratic Party. Some cynics think George Bush is still president, using Bill Clinton as a front, just as he had used Ronald Reagan. Remember, anyone who wanted to meet with President Reagan had to first go through Bush's man, Chief of Staff James Baker.
Oh, a lovely bunch of coconuts.
Yeah, and they kill children too. There is a book that was recently on the New York Times bestsellers list about Pamela Harriman, entitled Life of the Party. This book, written by the diplomatic correspondent for Time magazine, minces no words about the fact that Pamela Harriman put the Bill Clinton administration together. In fact, it notes that an ancestor of Pamela's conspired with the Percys in the gunpowder plot. Brown Brothers Harriman, headed by Averill Harriman, the Sullivan and Cromwell law firm, headed by John Foster Dulles, and the Union Bank, backed by George Herbert Walker and Prescott Bush, came to represent the entire business interests of the Nazi cartels in the United States before and during World War II. Now we're getting interesting. Nazis. It may therefore seem astounding to the average person that after the war, John Foster Dulles could go on to become Secretary of State, his brother Allen Dulles, Director of the CIA, and Averill Harriman, Ambassador to the USSR. An understanding of this anomaly will provide a key to how the world is run. A careful reading of Anthony Sutton's works, Wall Street and the Bolshevik Revolution and Wall Street and the Rise of Hitler, will reveal that the wealthiest individuals in the world, including John D. Rockefeller and Prescott Bush, financed the left-wing Bolsheviks and the right-wing Nazis and clashed them in war for profit and power. The two Wall Street firms most in the forefront of the financing of the Bolshevik Revolution were J.P. Morgan and Brown Brothers Harriman. A full half of the board of directors of these two firms were former members of the Skull and Bones at Yale. Percy Rockefeller, Prescott Bush, and Roland Harriman were in the same pledged class. This group intends to control both sides of every conflict. Fletcher Prouty's book, JFK, Vietnam and the Assassination of President Kennedy, now in local bookstores, will provide an insider's viewpoint of how these same centers of finance stay on top by controlling both the communist and the anti-communist armies. The influence of the Yale secret societies, the Skull and Bones, on world affairs is so great that a short article like this cannot attempt to do more than present an outline and a direction for further research. Needless to say, this group has cut through history like a snowplow. As previously stated, Alphonso Taft, co-founder of the Skull and Bones and ancestor of George Bush, was sufficiently influential to manipulate his son, William Howard Taft, into both the presidency from 1909 to 1913 and the Chief Justiceship of the United States Supreme Court. Quite significantly, it was during the Taft presidency that our Constitution was dismantled. As Chief Justice, Taft fashioned the state constitutions of Arizona and New Mexico, also highly significant. During the Taft presidency, the bills which forever altered the balance of the power of the Constitution were incubated. The 17th Amendment, calling for the direct election of senators, guaranteeing that senatorial elections could be purchased by big money interests, was passed April 1913. Previously, while the senators were elected by the state legislators, the United States Senate was a bastion of conservative resistance to the elitists. If our state legislators had the power to elect our United States senators, many of us would take the trouble to get to know who they are.
That would be good.
Now, the only people who invest in state legislators are those whose economic interests are directly impacted. The Federal Reserve Act and the Income Tax Amendment, that's the 16th Amendment, of 1913, also issued directly from the Taft presidency. William Taft served as Commissioner of Internal Revenue just before being elected president. It's hard to imagine anything more impressive than the IRS, which has been ruthlessly used and systematically destroy the middle class of America. Anyone who seriously wishes to understand how the Federal Reserve was used to utterly subvert the intention of the Constitution must read The Secrets of the Federal Reserve by Eustace Mullins, pushed through Congress by Senator Nelson Aldrich, the maternal grandfather of David Rockefeller, This act of infamy marks the death knell of this nation's economic freedom. The Federal Reserve is not federal, but it is a consortium of private central banks. The federal government does not own a single share, and none of us can buy a share of this, the most lucrative corporate stock in the world. Shares are held today by the heirs of the original 20 founding families. With profits exceeding $150 billion per annum, no corporation in the world comes anywhere close. The Federal Reserve is simply the single most impactful agency upon the United States economy and the world's principal engine for the maldistribution of wealth. If the profits of the Federal Reserve are compounded from its inception to the present, a sum roughly equivalent to the national debt results. Wall Street interests pretended to fight this bill while all along they were its authors. Sadly, I note that these same tactics are successfully used to this day. Averill Harriman grew up on a 20,000-acre estate in New York. His father, W.A. Harriman, was the original owner of the Southern Pacific Railroad, which runs through northern Arizona. William Boyce Thompson, who left Arizona, the Thompson Arboretum near Globe, was the first governor of the Federal Reserve. The presidential election of 1912 had a great deal in common with the 1990 election. All three candidates were financed by the same interests. William Taft would have beaten Woodrow Wilson in a two-way race, but another Republican, Teddy Roosevelt, entered the race to divide the Republican vote. What did Taft care? He was promised the Chief Justiceship of the United States Supreme Court. With the Federal Reserve sure to become law, the international bankers now had a mechanism in place to fund a world war. They needed a popular Democratic president to lead the masses into war. Enter Woodrow Wilson. Mounted on a wall in the Wrigley Mansion is a letter Teddy Roosevelt wrote to P.T. Wrigley thanking him for the first and largest financial contribution to his 1912 race for the presidency. On the way to Sedona is a resort that once served as the principal watering hole for the wealthiest men in the world.
Sedona where?
Known as the Castle Hot Springs.
Is Sedona, Arizona?
Yep. Known as Castle Hot Springs, this resort was built in 1888 by Frank Murphy, the contractor who built the Southern Pacific Railroad for W.A. Harriman. To this day, the summer homes there of John D. Rockefeller and P.T. Wrigley sit side by side. Well, that's the entire article. And it gives you an idea of some of this newspaper. Let me see what's through here. Censorship of Tempe High School Theater Group. Legislative reporters needed. I was arrested for $9.83. Article called Angry Rain. Straight talk from the Women's Street Support Center. A different perspective of the bell curve. Article. The Golden Ox feeds over 400 homeless on Christmas. I think this is...
TVs did pretty good, I bet.
Yeah. Cafe Cinema. They got an article on telling you what kind of like a Siskel and Ebert type of a thing. Under 3, you're free. A message to child molesters from the Phoenix Police. Under 3, you're free. A very disturbing article here on a family whose daughter was molested and the Phoenix Police refused to do anything about it. Dragging their feet. Here's an article here in Film Set on the holidays, what to do about it. Nice article about a guy that picks up cans, and he told himself and was able to put together $516 from the cans that he picked up. This is the guy that went around picking up cans. He took that $516 and he donated it to the whole thing, the Christmas gifts for the needy.
All right.
Okay, so that's what kind of people
Positive
are out there.
energy.
That's what kind of people are out there. Some of these guys are out there, the homeless, you know. You see the guy dragging through the thing, picking up cans. How do you know what that person did? This guy did that, and all year long, he does that all year long. He's kind of a retired guy, and picks up those cans and he gives them to people. Here's a poem called The Hillbilly Hippie and the Sober Blonde. Doo-dah. Anyway, it's a very interesting alternative news source. And here's the articles that are inside. Those who dismantled the Constitution, the Skull and Bones Society founded at Yale University in the 1800s is still running our lives. Under 3 you're free. Good news for child molesters in the state of Arizona. The Women's Street Support Center, a candid interview with the people who run this haven for women. And I was arrested for $9.83. Find out how the sheriff's office can negate all of your rights and confiscate your personal property. And as of this printing, you and the Grapevine have put $253,500 into the pockets of the homeless. And I think,
Here.
yeah, here is right. I think the Grapevine deserves a round of applause. So when you see the Grapevine out on the street, people, give it a shot. I think you'll enjoy it, and you'll be able to help whoever is selling that paper right there have a better new year and a better day.
Excellent.
And
Time is it? 7
the
o'clock?
neat part is that you don't have to be homeless
Right.
in order to sell this.
You just
And
want
if
to distribute it in your area.
If you want to distribute it, be a distributor. I'll give you a phone number to call. But don't call it until after 7 a.m. in the morning, which will be okay now, because I think it's after 7 a.m., isn't it? So, it's just 7 o'clock. If you're interested in distributing the Grapevine, this is the number. I'm going to give it to you now. And this is just in the Tucson area. So it's a Tucson number, obviously. 623-2709. And I'll repeat that again so you can write it down. 623-2709. And ask about the Grapevine. And you don't have to be homeless to sell the Grapevine. And you can make between $30 and $50 a day. If you put in, you can make about $5 to $6 an hour. Is what the test results are coming back, and I've done this myself. I kind of test marketed this. I was one of the first people to test market it out on the street for about 4 weeks, and that's what it averages out. And the nice thing about it is that it builds itself up, because the people that read the paper tend to want to continue reading the paper, and they look for you. So it's a way for, if you can't find yourself work, this is a way it's legitimate work, and it's something. Get a hold of a paper and read one, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about.
Wrapping up
And,
with a new show, or should I cue a tape here?
Do you have a tape to cue?
I got something I can play.
Okay, so let me see. I think I'm going to wrap this up by saying goodbye. 1994. And are we ready for you? 1995. Remember, the militia of Montana and the militia of wherever you happen to live. The Constitution, there is a solution Read the Constitution. See you next year.
All right.
chair over here, please? Got the channels you can come on. Shane, can you grab that chair? Stuff on it. Oh, really? Yeah. So they're all yeah, as you roll, you're on TV. Tucson, whoever's watching. I just think I wonder if Jordy's watching this. Just
There, I gripped for you.
go walk up to the camera and wake him up.
Jordy, wake up.
Jordy, get up. Jordy, you watching us? Get up. Live interview. Three Stooges, rest in your chair. I get to stay one more chair now? We'll put you behind you.
So you can look at the picture, photo on it. Want to kick me out of any cafe. Listen, I haven't eaten all day. If you could just leave my stuff. Yeah, not right this second. Okay. Since my trunks are all situated on 4th Avenue. So your home, I do get it. Okay, you get a good thought for us? Like if his black nice to meet you. Are you masturbating my hand off?
Craig takes off and not does shit.
Where would you like it, sir?
Well, I'd like it profiling them just about where it was. I just realized you can get a great profile shot.
Hey, you guys want to go in and get this heated up for me? Because they kicked me out and they told me if I could walk back in there after I kicked them off.
I'm Ed, your host, kind of, sort of. We got John, Travis, and Brad also on the show. We're going to talk some basketball and football mostly tonight. And like we promised last week, we've got a college football playoff format. We're going to use the bowls, incorporate that into the playoff format. You'll see what we're talking about later on.
I know, you guys, I got to get out of town before I get shot.
Highlights of football and basketball maybe, or what, Brad?
So, I take care of it.
Had a great 15-year career.
Take care of me. Give me some videos.
Set up good field position. Perfectly done right there. Disappointing week there for Esiason.
Oh, God. Get the fuck out of here, tell him back this motherfucker. Go. You know everybody in the street on the southeast. Wear leather on the street. See, look what you get for telling me. Damn. Hey, you guys. Hey, I've got one of your boxes already from that rave. Get out of here.
Cowboys.
It has Q-tips in it, and I kept it. It's in my trunk.
Excuse me.
Touchdown.
You were right, Ed. Alabama with the ramble. Guys going wild. Ramble.
Crimson Tide ready to roll.
All right, Gators with the kick. It's through the uprights. All right.
Discussing strategy. Steve Spurrier.
Oh, flea flicker. Oh, look at that tricky play. Yep. He's pulled out.
Those teams in Florida, they're tricky. You gotta watch them.
And the score. It's going wild.
And that extra point was really key in this game because Gene Stallings decided to go for one.
He would rise past in the triple coverage there.
They'd be up by 2 field goals.
Here we go.
Andre and Dion. And we know who gets the better of this matchup every time. As you can see right there. This one's not being played at Dion's house. It's Dion's rental.
House rookie quarters.
Great game from Steve Young.
5 touchdowns here.
3 passing, 2 running.
Ricky Waters. Dean Jones is upset. I would be too if I was coaching Atlanta.
There goes Young with the scramble.
He was averaging like 1 touchdown a game, right?
Great catch there. Okay.
It's hard for one.
Art Monk. This is his week to set the record, everybody. He's tied with Steve Largent, most receptions of all time. Had a great 15-year career.
This is a pooch punt. Position. This is perfectly done. cold. They're 7-6 now.
There's Marshall. Cowboys.
The Seahawks Colts.
Yeah, dude, chill. You're right.
Who is this? Is that Buchanan? I think it's Buchanan.
Meyer he's injured on that
Gets his
play.
thumb stepped on.
Miami
We are at
Buffalo.
Joe Robbie. What a beautiful stadium, huh?
There's Miami. Disappointing week for the Dolphins, playing the Buffalo Bills. And the Bills of all the Dolphins, they've won 14 of the last 18 meetings between the two teams.
Look at this.
Once again,
Great concentration by the BB.
BB.
BB in his way into the end
There is
zone.
no more.
That's 6.
It was a high-scoring game by both teams. Montana runs back with the pressure. Picked off again, Dan. That was the old Vice throw, I think.
And Dan had quite a few interceptions this game. Was it 2 or 3, Ed?
He had 3, man.
Three. Here's Reed.
Still pass.
He fumbles it and then he throws it. Good arm on Reed. That's a start for the Rams.
That's his first pass in his NFL career.
Nice tackling. And he's pushed out of bounds.
And this is where he goes like 83 yards.
Look at that.
Look at this. No, buddy, gonna get him. And the ref's the only guy up here.
Good job by the ref there.
Yeah, ref's got I think the ref scored before he did. Jim Kelly's excited.
This shows a frustration with the Dolphins, right?
Brian Cox.
Yeah, he loves
It's just a lot of character for Cox.
Yeah,
To do
Cox
something like throw a helmet.
does it all the time. Jeff Blake under the helm for the Bengals. Brian Cox
Interception.
just hit going wrong and he's picked off.
How about the Pittsburgh defense this season?
Pittsburgh defense is dominating.
Pittsburgh has really shown me the last couple of weeks. For real.
They got a luxury with having
2 pretty good quarterbacks.
Van Morris, Foster, and they got the receiver. He's the best AFC receiver. Backfield.
The NFL 75th anniversary all everything team. That's why. The premier backs. Absolutely.
This won the game. He's amazing. The Johnson.
Game of 13.
He's everybody's favorite buddy.
The hot rush. There's a game of superpowers. Oh, yeah.
There's Schrader. I don't know what he's doing here. The Oilers are going to get in the end zone for the rest of this season anyway.
Okay.
That's good for Gary Clark.
Yeah.
Get him out of the quicksand.
It's good to see him back in a disappointing year.
He's had a real disappointing.
How Buddy Ryan?
Well, we all know Buddy Ryan. They should be dropped 4
Hey, there's a
passes.
sombrero.
It's the buck.
Come hang out with the guys. I sound like a fucking asshole. How do you get your hair like that? That's really cool. Dude, I smoke a lot of dope. Thanks.
We got a call. I don't know if the dude's for real. He says survey of what we want to drink, and he said he'll bring it down. Gatorade iced tea. How about a Gatorade iced tea? What else do we want? I could even reimburse you. Donuts. 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 He said to drink. Oh, they really have. How about some Mountain Dew too, man? What brings you down here? We get some Mountain Dew. What else? What else do we want to drink? This guy.
Once upon a time, there was a powerful warrior named Yes? I'm not talking. Go ahead, talk to me, please.
Cody.
That guy's name, Mike.
You mad?
Everybody else go.
We don't deserve this.
We saw no reason to do the show. Over there in the rain.
See, the show must go on no matter if it's rain, but still, get the show going. You know, nothing stops us, man. We're just go get people. Look at the boat, look at the boat.
Wow. Wow. Now we're getting weird. Now we're getting creative. Who made that?
Violence. The only thing that really makes sense. Violence. You have a little sense. Violence.
Oh no. Kamala.
No, it fucked up already, dude.
Run down to that stop sign and put it in down there. See how far it'll go, man. I'll give anybody $1.58 to do it. Right now, $1.58. It's only a little rain. You're already wet. Get up here. You could be running. Come on. Where are you from? I told you. Come on. I would offer 20, but really I can afford it. Let's see what I got here. Wait a minute. Did you give me that $4 back? Wow. So I didn't expect I'll offer $2 right now. Anybody will take that boat down the street, down to that street sign. What do you think? Will you do it, Marty?
I think a viewer from home should come down here and experience this. This is totally insane. They can't hang. You can't hang part 2. John Ullman can't hang. Dan Harrigan can't hang. Shane can't. There he is.
Wow, Shane. Sorry,
Shane can't hang.
Shane can hang. Come on, will you offer $2 for somebody to go out there and put that boat out there? Give me $2 and I'll go out there and put that boat out there. Right.
Instant Access TV that's alive. This is the final show for 1994. We'll be back on Sunday, New Year's Day, noon till 8, to be a little bit warmer, and we'll have something going on. We're going to have some live bands come down, and at least one that we know of, and maybe more. So if you want to join us, noon till 8 o'clock on Sunday, New Year's Day, instant access will be up.
They make no sense.
San Diego holding the Niners. That's the key. Because you have to make it a defensive. That.
Let's go! Tomato pot!
The Niners just playing so well. Don't say words.
Good matchup there. Awesome. Niners. Dallas wins or if the Niners win, that team will have the edge. So that's important for those both teams to look at.
I'm not so sure home field advantage means a whole lot in the NFC. San Francisco can both win on the road. The Niners and Fish should. I think they can beat the Niners in San Francisco. I think it's more fun. It's a fact.
Whoever wins that.
Now I'm conceding the NFC championship.
Definitely. Those are the two teams in our book.
Anything less for Now I'm upset, you say?
Yeah, but that's what
Why do you want to call me Chris for? Do I look like Chris?
No, you don't look any